what we can do.
Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World, and here are the key headlines. US President Donald Trump has called on House Republicans to support releasing the Jeffrey Epstein files, reversing his previous opposition. The House is expected to vote on the making of the documents public, which could include records on Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell and others. Donald Trump has stated that he would approve legislation imposing sanctions on countries trading with Russia as long as he retains ultimate control. Lawmakers have backed the bill while the White House continues efforts to negotiate an end to the war between Russia and Ukraine. A Russian missile strike has killed one in Kharkiv's Berestyn and wounded at least 9 people. Meanwhile, Russia says its air defenses shot down 31 Ukrainian drones overnight. In Donetsk, Ukrainian attacks have hit 2 power plants, causing widespread outages. US President Donald Trump has stated that he plans to approve Saudi Arabia's request to buy up to 48 US-made F-35 fighter jets, a potential multi-billion-dollar deal ahead of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to Washington. A civil nuclear cooperation framework will also be signed. North Korea has slammed the US-South Korea fact sheet as confrontational, warning of countermeasures. Kim Jong-un has criticized Seoul's nuclear submarine plans and alleged US control over the region. Meanwhile, South Korea stressed that it has no hostile intent towards the North. Japan has warned its citizens in China to heighten safety as Taiwan-related tensions spike, citing rising anti-Japan sentiment. The embassy in Beijing has urged avoiding crowds and staying alert. Meanwhile, the US has withdrawn a missile system from Japan as the Beijing-Tokyo dispute deepens. Donald Trump has stated that he will speak with Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, who he is accused of releasing prisoners into the US. Maduro has welcomed face-to-face dialogue and stressed diplomacy over force. Meanwhile, Trinidad's Prime Minister stated that the country won't allow its territory for attacks on Venezuela. China and Vietnam will conduct a joint naval patrol in the Beibu Gulf on the 19th and 20th of November to boost maritime security, enhance communication, and strengthen mutual trust between their naval forces, highlighting efforts to maintain regional stability. Well, viewers, those are the headlines and our top focus. US President Donald Trump has expressed support for House Republicans' efforts to release additional files related to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, calling it a Democrat problem and accusing prominent Democrats, including former President Bill Clinton, of having ties to Epstein. Now, Trump's endorsement of this push has come after a petition from House Republicans that gathered enough support to force a vote on the matter, a rare instance of GOP lawmakers defying the president's wishes. Listen in to what Trump had to say.
Something you posted on Truth Social last night, you urged House Republicans to vote in favor of this Epstein release bill they're going to vote on tomorrow. I just want to be super clear on your position. Do you want to see that pass the Senate? Would you sign that bill if it gets to your desk?
I do want to. Here's what I want. We have nothing to do with Epstein. The Democrats do. All of his friends were Democrats. You look at this Reid Hoffman, you look at Larry Summers, Bill Clinton, they went to his island all the time, and many others, they're all Democrats.
The controversy has reignited attention on the ties between Epstein and several high-profile figures, including Trump, who has maintained that he was unaware of his criminal activities. The House is set to vote on a resolution requiring the Justice Department to release all unclassified files related to the Epstein probe. If passed, the bill would move to the Senate, and if approved over there, it would be sent to Trump for final approval. Meanwhile, Epstein survivor Alicia Arden has urged the House to pass a resolution criticizing Washington for prioritizing political games over transparency. Listen in.
Appeal to the members of the House. Vote to release these files so that we can finally see who else helped Jeffrey Epstein and who else victimized so many children and adults.
In response to the ongoing scrutiny, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers has publicly apologized for his past communication with Epstein, stating that he was stepping back from public commitments in an effort to rebuild trust. In response to the growing public demand, survivors of Epstein's abuse, in cooperation with the coalition World Without Exploitation, released a powerful video urging US lawmakers to vote on the resolution to release all remaining files related to the investigation. The video features key survivors who call on the US Congress to take decisive action. With us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic expert joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. Donald Trump seems to be in quite a soup with regards to these files. The rhetoric has exploded, particularly on social media with regards to this bill. We're also seeing several Republican lawmakers, including Marjorie Taylor Greene, now coming out and emphasizing that it is time that the FBI declassifies all files related to this. But so far we've seen Trump has been trying to pin the blame on the Democrats. He's been a little evasive when it comes to questions on signing the bill. What sort of impact could we see this have, especially with this MAGA voter base, which has been quite vocal for quite a while to release these particular files?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for getting me for your show. And as regards to the question which you have raised, take your mind back to the election campaigning of Donald Trump 2.0.
Yes.
Repeatedly, time and again, Donald Trump made it as one of the central points to declassify or release the documents related to Epstein, if you recall correctly. And I don't think I'll disrespect my memory. It is the same man who has risen to become the president for the second tenure. Why isn't he releasing? Isn't this double talk and double standard? And I'm his, no, actually you are very, very diplomatic in your articulation. You have said that he's in soup. I'm saying he's in thick soup. So thick soup, it will lead to a kind of a impeachment. These kind of violations are very serious violations in American Constitution or any other constitution anywhere in the world. It's a very serious thing. His name is there. It is connected. He is connected. So he has to very openly and candidly admit the thing beforehand in order to safeguard or create some kind of a elbow room space to protect himself. And I don't know, it is only he who knows how deeply he was connected and involved in the thing. But to the best of my open source reading, he's definitely into it. And his name has been mentioned number of times. He's taking the alibi of Democrats. Democrats are to be blamed. He's taking the name of Bill Clinton. He's taking XYZ. But unfortunately, his name is also figuring. If his name is not there, then why is he hesitating, holding himself back from disclosing or releasing the document? It will do him good for the sake of, I would say, accountability, for the sake of credibility, as the president who has come back to power for the second time with a laudable mandate and I would say favorable voting in his favor. It will do him good for the sake of the people of America to make America great again. Otherwise, I'm sorry and I'm very sad to say that he will be doing everything contradictory to make America great again. Back to you, Priya.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us as we're shifting focus to some further updates we're tracking. The White House has now stated that US President Donald Trump is prepared to sign new legislation imposing sanctions on Russia, but only if he retains final authority over how those sanctions are applied. A senior White House official has confirmed that the US President's position is this itself after Trump told reporters that he was open to Republican-backed efforts targeting countries that would continue doing business with Moscow, especially amid Russia's failure to negotiate a peace agreement with Ukraine. The proposed bill, led by Senator Lindsey Graham and Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, would penalize nations that purchase Russian energy exports. Trump has also suggested lawmakers may add Iran to the measure as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. Interesting development coming in. We do know that we have seen Donald Trump weaponizing tariffs as a means, in India's case particularly, as far as its import of Russian oil and energy is concerned. But at the same time, the United States continues trading with Russia for key minerals, for fertilizers as well. But nobody seems to be calling out this double standard that the US is engaging in.
Yeah, if that question is for me, I would say we are missing the woods for the trees. He may be putting pressure and putting penalty of 25% additional on India for buying oil. He may be calling out oil, but the hidden agenda of Trump and his administration is to take effective and meaningful measures and prevent de-dollarization. India is one of the countries. There are many countries in the world. We are doing transactions with Russia in non-dollar currencies.
Yes.
So what we are doing in ruble, we're doing in rupee, and we are doing in yuan. So more you do is, for the ease of understanding of our viewers, let me explain. The Indian oil expenditure for 2024 was close to 134. It may be plus minus this side, that side, $134 billion. Out of $134 billion of last year, $75 billion transaction was done in non-dollar currencies. So isn't 75 billion for 1 year, for one country, big enough and a slow process of de-dollarization? It is. So it is actually weakening the dominance. There was a time when the dollar used to dominate 89% as a reserve currency in the geoeconomics, in the global economic order. And now during pandemic, it went down to 54%. Now I believe it is bounced back to around close to 56, between 56 and 59%. And the domain experts, economic experts, those who specialize on the subject, they have claimed that the day the dollar dominance in the global order as a reserve currency goes down below 50%, that will be the end state of USA as a superpower. Assuming or given the fact that they are running a debt of 37 trillion,
Yes.
$37 trillion of debt, and the resources required to run the normal routine governance in USA is 6 trillion per annum. Their revenue generation is just about 4 trillion. So there is a deficit of 1 trillion here, and they have to pay off. The interest servicing is amounting to around 1 trillion. Approximately $3 trillion deficit they have to manage year by year. So how do they generate this kind of fund? So that is the criticality. They are actually trying to put pressure on India, and therefore it is no double standard, double talk. It is all national interest of USA which is being safeguarded. And therefore, yesterday only we would have seen in the news that India has been coerced, I would say. It has been forced to actually go in for relaxing the oil deal.
Yes.
The gas, India has never bought LPG from such far off distances. The cost is going to rise. We have always bought LPG from Middle East, always and every time post our independence and creation as a nation. This is for the first time India is doing to please Donald Trump and buying. There is a 10% rise in the expenditure on LPG. Instead of buying from Middle East, we are buying it from USA. This is simply to please Donald Trump and make sure that the transactions are carried out in dollar and we do not indulge in slow poison and incremental poisoning of de-dollarization. This is my understanding, Pia, and for whatever penny is worth that I can contribute to your channel. Back to you, please.
Absolutely, sir. Requesting you to stay on with us. We're tracking some other updates this time regarding what's taking place in Europe as far as the war is concerned. We're now learning that a Russian missile strike has killed a 17-year-old girl and wounded at least 9 others in Ukraine's eastern Kharkiv region. Local authorities say the attack hit the city of Berestin, while a nearby Dnipro also reported fires after a separate drone strike. Meanwhile, Russia's defense ministry says air defense units shot down 31 Ukrainian drones overnight. The heaviest activity was reported over the Voronezh and Tambov regions, where 10 drones were intercepted in each area. In the Moscow-backed Donetsk People's Republic, regional leader Denis Pushilin has stated that Ukrainian forces struck the Zuyevskaya and Stryobishevskaya thermal power plants. He's reported widespread outages with boiler houses and filtration stations knocked offline. Still with us on the broadcast is Major General Sudhakarji. Day by day, we're seeing the barrage of attacks targeting energy infrastructure continuing to take place. We've been discussing this especially with winter rolling round the corner. But I wanted to take a little more protracted view of the situation. How do you see this playing out? Because Russia has recently stated that it is open for talks in Istanbul with Ukraine.
It's good. It's very positive. So showing signs of progressive stance, I would say. But the outcome, I know, nothing will happen. Why nothing will happen? Because although, you see, there are two aspects which need to be understood by us, by the viewers. For Putin, ending the war in not in terms of Russia or to his advantage, it is going to be geopolitically cost prohibitive. He simply cannot, or Russia as a country cannot afford to lose this war. They have to end the war in terms or as per the requirement, as per the understanding, as per the parameters which have already been etched out on ground and in the mind of the people of Russia and particularly the leader Putin. He is doing a good thing, let me tell you. Putin is very right because I'm saying this with a lot of conviction and confidence because the real problem has to be addressed. Now, on the contrary, if you look at the Westerners, they will continue indulging in this kind of drama and rhetorics, talks here, talks there. Every 7-10 days they will come rushing. No, 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 no. The battle must carry on because the defense industry is actually relying on it. Because now, you see, 6 out of 10 top industries, different industries in the world, they belong to USA. When I say deep state of USA, the defense industry managers and the architecture of hierarchy is also part of the deep state. They are apart from others. So their business would go into a absolutely grinding halt if the conflicts do not run like this. So this conflict will carry on. Their aim is to bleed Russia to death, which is simply impossible. More pressure, more sanction they impose on Russia, formidable and stronger its economy becomes. Its defense industry from 2 times the size and the speed at which it is to produce the weapons, ammunitions and missiles and other things in comparison to the Western alliance has gone up to 5 to 8 times now. It is much more, it is twice the size and the speed, the rate of what it had during Second World War, by the way. Okay, so that has to be understood. And third and most important thing is missiles like Orange Sheikh or the latest one which is nuclear powered, which they carried out test 14,000 kilometers away, they fired Burevestnik. Burevestnik is a nuclear powered missile, not a nuclear missile which has been, or warhead which has been tested. Also they tested one a torpedo which is called an underwater drone, and there is no defensive mechanism in the world order which can stop this particular Poseidon underwater in the world today, which Russia has demonstrated. It is again a nuclear power. That is what actually given triggers, jitters to Donald Trump. He's given orders to Pentagon to carry out testing of nuclear weapons despite having imposed self-imposed moratorium for 33 years based on the understanding of CTBT. So that apart, all I'm saying is that Istanbul or no Istanbul, the talks will carry on. We only hope and pray that this mindless conflict must come to an end with some practical solution. Practical solution to me as a military man, I have handled and contributed significantly to such kind of disputes in the past, and I recommend that as is, where is, basis is the best answer, which Westerners will never accept. When I say as is, where is, basis means the complete firing must freeze. All barrels will be shut. There will be no firing from across either of the stakeholders. Or imaginary line has to be understood, accepted mutually by both the parties, or neutral party. Sorry, the stakeholders have to fall back by a couple of kilometers from this imaginary line, and they have to remain sacrosanct and binding that it will not be violated until such time Now, the next step of ceasefire is not resorted to. And finally, a neutral party has to be there to ensure that the understanding and the commitments made by both the parties for ceasefire and peace and harmony is not violated at any point in time. So, unless this thing happens, and I doubt because there is no leader. Technically and legally speaking, Zelensky is not a leader. He has already surpassed his mandate of presidentialship. Now Ukraine should rightfully have an election, which is not allowing. There are cases of corruption against this man. So there are lots of, very complex issues which are connected to one another. Therefore, let this Istanbul talk go. And I only hope and pray that they come to some kind of a conclusion. The issue where it is likely to get stuck here is that even if the agreement takes place, this 20% land which has been already captured under occupation of Russia, if it is based on as is where is, because I don't see any solution other than this, then the parliament of Ukraine has to ratify this particular loss of territory or given to Russia. It is only parliament. Zelensky has got no power nor authority as a president. A new president has to be elected and represent Ukraine. Then only the peace agreements can be signed and carried forward as a legal, tenable, and technical document, meaningfully going to be applicable and applied on the ground by relevant stakeholders across the board. Back to you, Pia.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, sharing your analysis and putting all of this into context for our viewers. On that note, we should focus to more news coming in. US President Donald Trump has stated that he plans to approve the sale of US-made F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia. Trump has made such comments before, and now, of course, he plans to host Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in Washington, D.C. So the timing of these statements are very crucial. Saudi Arabia had earlier requested to buy as many as 48 F-35 fighter jets, a potential multi-billion-dollar deal that has cleared a key Pentagon hurdle ahead of MBS's visit. Listen in to what Trump had to say.
Yeah, no, I am planning on doing that. Yeah.
You're gonna
They
sell
want to
the
buy. They've
F-35s?
been a great ally. They've got to like us very much. Look at the Iran situation, what we did in terms of obliterating, we obliterated their nuclear capability. Yeah, I will say that we will be doing that. We'll be selling F-35.
Meanwhile, according to reports, the United States will also sign the framework of a civil nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia during the Crown Prince's visit. With us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratne, International Affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. Thank you so much for taking our time to speak to us on NewsX World. At the outset, I wanted to understand from you, if this deal does go ahead and materialize, how could it change the delicate balance of power in the Middle East? We do know that it's Israel that currently has the cutting-edge F-35 fighter jets in its fleet, and no other country in the Middle East does.
You're correct, Pia. Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has the F-35 fighter that has given a qualitative edge in warfighting in the Middle East. That is why Israel has some reservations about the United States selling the F-35 to Saudi Arabia. Of course, President Trump is very much driven by his economic goals. He wants a $600 billion investment from Saudi Arabia to the United States that will boost U.S. economy significantly. So I believe that this deal will go through. Not only that, U.S. and U.S. and Saudi Arabia will strengthen the partnership on AI, because Saudi Arabia also wants advanced chips that will give an edge to Saudi Arabia over other countries in the Middle East. Currently, UAE is leading in that field in artificial intelligence. And finally, I want to tell you that many people have forgotten what happened to Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey.
Yes.
And because time has passed, and I think it is important to recognize Saudi Arabia, it is important to recognize Mohammed bin Salman, because he has modernized Saudi Arabia. He has fought extremism from Saudi Arabia that has radicalized many pockets of Muslims around the world, and we should all support Saudi Arabia's modernization into a modern country in the early 21st century. So I think that there will be very little opposition to MBS, and I think that this is something that is very important and very good for global stability and security.
Indeed, and I also wanted to understand the implications of the civil nuclear agreement. How is that also likely to impact the balance of power? Because we do know that Iran has its own nuclear program that it says is for civilian purposes, but of course there are larger concerns that it could be developing a weapon of its own.
Saudi Arabia is very keen to build a nuclear capability. That may be difficult at this point, but Saudi Arabia has taken the first steps in that by planning to build a civil nuclear capability. So between the civil nuclear capability and a military nuclear capability, the line is very thin. Most countries that have developed civil nuclear capabilities can develop a military nuclear capability if they want to do that. So that is the direction Saudi Arabia is heading. Right now, Saudi Arabia Pakistan has given the nuclear cover. But in the future, I believe that the United States will do that. Saudi Arabia also seeks a very wide-ranging defense and military cooperation agreement with the United States, both defensive and offensive. And that will also happen. That will be a matter of discussion in Washington, D.C. when Trump and MBS meets. There's one reservation, that is Trump wants Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel so that ties will be normalized. Saudi Arabia will join the Abraham Accords. So I believe that all these things will create greater stability and security in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, sir, requesting you to stay on with us as we're shifting focus away from the Middle East towards what's happening in the Caribbean. US President Donald Trump has stated that he will talk to his Venezuelan counterpart, Nicolas Maduro, at some point. Trump has accused Maduro of releasing prisoners into the United States, but has added that he will be speaking to the Venezuelan president. Take a look at his comments.
Look, he's done tremendous damage to our country, primarily because of drugs, but really because we have that problem with other countries too. But more than any other country, the release of prisoners into our country has been a disaster. He's emptied his jails. Others have done that also. He has not been good to the United States. So we'll see what happens. At a certain period of time, I'll be talking.
Meanwhile, Nicolas Maduro has responded to Donald Trump's remarks, stating that his government is open to face-to-face dialogue on diplomatic issues. Maduro has reaffirmed Venezuela's commitment to diplomacy and international law while condemning the use of force or military threats. Listen in.
Ratificamos que solo a través de la diplomacia se deben entender los países libres, los gobiernos, y solo a través del diálogo se deben buscar puntos comunes en temas de interés mutuo. Así que este país está en paz. Este país va a continuar en paz. Y en Estados Unidos, el que quiera hablar con Venezuela, se hablará. Face to face. Cara a cara. Sin ningún problema. Lo que no se puede.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Kamala Persad Bissessar of Trinidad and Tobago has emphasized that the Caribbean nation will not allow its territory to be used to launch attacks on Venezuela. The leader has added that the United States has never asked to use the country's territory to attack Venezuela. Professor Rohan Gunaratne still with us on the broadcast. How significant are Donald Trump's remarks? We do know that Washington does not really recognize the Maduro government in Caracas and has been ramping up its efforts to crack down on what it claims are drug peddlers trying to enter the United States from Venezuela. What do you make of Trump's remarks, Nicolas Maduro's response to this as well, stating that he's open to dialogue?
So, United States has conducted a number of bombings, attacks against vessels allegedly carrying drugs and criminals from Venezuela to the United States. And of course, the US will continue to do that because US perception is that there is a threat. And it is very likely that it is true because the flow of drugs is largely from Central and Latin America into the United States, and the US has taken a very tough security posture. What is important is Venezuela is very closely allied to Russia and to China and to Iran. And Trump doesn't like that. Trump, in fact, dislikes Maduro because of his geopolitical leanings. So if both these leaders meet, things can change because Trump essentially is a businessman. He's a deal maker. So if Venezuela agrees to Trump's terms, it is very likely that this dispute will come to an end. And of course, the United States and Venezuela will work together to detect and disrupt the flow of drugs and dismantle the criminal networks that pose a threat to the United States. But will that happen? That is the biggest question.
Indeed, and we're also seeing a reaction coming from Trinidad and Tobago, which is located just off the coast of Venezuela. It did in fact host a US warship quite recently, but it has affirmed that it will not allow its territory to be used to carry out an attack on Venezuela. Do you think the administration in Trinidad and Tobago is trying to strike a balance as tensions continue to simmer? Because on one hand, it does have its economic considerations with Washington.
Trinidad and Tobago wants to just survive because the neighboring countries of Venezuela do not want to get involved in a dispute between the United States and Venezuela. So I only hope that these countries will be able to survive amidst two countries having having an escalation and tensions. So I think that the world should be very sympathetic to the position that is adopted by small states, especially in a situation like this, because they just want to survive. And I think there should be sympathy as to the position that Trinidad and Tobago has taken.
All right, so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time, of course, putting all of that into perspective for our viewers. On that note, we're shifting our focus away from what's taking place in the Caribbean to what's happening in East Asia. North Korea has now slammed the US-South Korea joint fact sheet, calling it a confrontational move. Local media has stated that Pyongyang will take countermeasures. The report criticized South Korea for following the US's America First agenda. It also condemned the US's plan to help South Korea build nuclear-powered submarines, warning that it could lead to the development of nuclear weapons eventually. The joint agreement was announced last week and covers trade and security, including US support for South Korea to source fuel for the submarines. Meanwhile, Seoul insists it has no hostile intent towards North Korea. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this particular bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.